first visit for this snowstorm, and his plowing is incomplete. He will return with exact skill in the middle of the night when the snow stops and tidy the path among the drifts. When he thuds into the driveway at 3 a.m., I will hear him in my sleep and wake for a moment, taking pleasure from Steve's attack on drifts in the black night. My mother turned 90 in the Connecticut house where she had lived for almost 60 years, and spent her last decade looking out the window. My father died at 52. For my mother's birthday, my wife Jane Kenyon and I arrived at her house early, and at noon my children and grandchildren surprised Grandma Lucy with a visit. We hugged and laughed together, taking pictures until I watched my mother's gaiety collapse into exhaustion. I shooed the young ones away, and my mother leaned back in her familiar Barcalounger, closing her eyes until strength returned. A few months later, she had one of her attacks of congestive heart failure, only a week after her most recent. An ambulance took her to Yale New Haven Hospital. Jane and I drove down from New Hampshire to care for her when she came home. She told us, "I tried not to dial 911. She knew she could no longer live alone, her pleasure and her pride. We moved her to a facility attached to a hospital near us in New Hampshire. She died a month short of 91. Her brain was still good. A week before she died, she read My Antonia for the 10th time. Willa Cather had always been a favorite. Most of the time in old age, she read Agatha Christie. She said that one of the advantages of being 90 was that she could read a detective story again only 2 weeks after she first read it without any notion of which character was the villain. Even so, her last months were mostly bleak. Her arthritic knees kept her to bed and chair, and the food was terrible. We visited every day until she died. A year later, Jane, at 47, was dying of leukemia and showed me poems she had been working on before she took sick. One was In the Nursing Home, about my mother at the end. Jane used the image of a horse running in wide circles, the circles growing smaller until they ceased. 20 years later, my circles narrow. Each season my balance gets worse, and sometimes I fall. I no longer cook for myself, but microwave widower food, mostly Stouffer's. My fingers are clumsy and slow with buttons. This winter I wear warm pullover shirts. My mother spent her last decade in caftans. For years I drove slowly and cautiously, but when I was 80 I had 2 accidents. I stopped driving before I killed somebody, and now when I shop or see a doctor, someone has to drive me. If I fly to do a poetry reading, my dear companion Linda Cunhart, who lives an hour away, must wheelchair me through airport and security. I read my poems sitting down. If I want to look at paintings, Linda wheelchairs me through museums. New poems no longer come to me with their prodigies of metaphor and assonance. Prose endures. I feel the circles grow smaller, and old age is a ceremony of losses, which is, on the whole, preferable to dying at 47 or 52. When I lament and darken over my diminishments, I accomplish nothing. It's better to sit at the window all day, pleased to watch birds, barns, and flowers. It is a pleasure to write about what I do. Generation after generation, my family's old people sat at this window to watch the year. There are beds in this house where babies were born, where the same babies died 80 years later. My grandmother Kate lived to be 97. Kate's daughter, my mother, owed her early death to 2 packs a day. Unfiltered Chesterfields first, then filtered Kents. My mother was grateful to cigarettes. They allowed her to avoid dementia. Before senescence, my grandmother looked out the window at Mount Kearsarge, 5 miles to the south. As I gaze in the same direction, I see only a triangle of foothill, because softwood has grown so tall that it gets in the way. When Kate was a child here, elms blocked the foothill. They grew tall on both sides of Route 4, some of them high enough to meet over the center of the road. When she was 94, she stumbled on the porch outside the window. Her fractured shin put her in the hospital. Kate, who had